appreciate you coming here and spending your time to ask some questions about your new book.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be back.
Yes, I really appreciate you being back. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
Without giving away any spoilers, where does Wayfarer take up after Passenger leaves it?
So Wayfarer actually takes place about a little less than a month after Passenger. So I would really recommend refreshing at least the ending of Passenger so you can dive straight in without being like, wait, what was that revelation at the end of Passenger? So just getting like a good grip by rereading maybe the last chapter of Passenger is key, I think, to the success of this book.
Okay, were there any important developments in the working of the time traveler system of Wayfarer?
Yeah, I got to answer the question that I wanted to address in Passenger but really couldn't. So what I ended up sort of touching on in this book versus Passenger was where the time travel trait even came from, like what the past history was, what was the original purpose of the time travelers, where did they all come from, basically. So like the big central question that's only hinted at in Passenger, that gets expanded quite a bit in Wayfarer, which was really fun. And I get to involve a little bit more magic, a little bit more fantasy, so that was really cool. I had a blast writing it.
That's great, I'm so excited. Are we going to encounter any new significant historical events in which the characters find themselves during the unfolding of the story?
Yes, and you know what? There's actually an alternate timeline. That's a little bit of a spoiler, but I won't give you major details about the alternate timeline, but it basically is sort of like the darkest timeline.
Darkest time. Oh.
So it's a little scary, and it's a future and actually a past that Etta doesn't recognize, so the reader is discovering at the same time that Etta is about what's changed, like what's at stake now, and it's kind of constantly shifting ground. But there's a lot of, even more so than Passenger, there's intersection with major events, and you get to meet a historical figure. They actually interact with this important historical figure, so yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know, I had to do it once. I had to get at least one time in.
One. Great. How much new research did you do for the second book, speaking of like the timeline?
Yeah, oh my gosh, this book ended up being a little bit more research than Passenger, because so much of Passenger is set in the 18th century, which I felt really comfortable writing because that's what I studied when I was in college. So this time I was like, you know what, go for it, like go to Africa this time, go to Asia this time, like really push yourself to try to explore with research other parts of the world that don't always get a time to shine in time travel books. I think a lot of time travel books end up being pretty Eurocentric or American-centric. So I was like, I'm gonna like push myself to really try to go to places that are unexpected. So there's a little bit of, I had to do ancient history research, 20th century research, just like all over the map, and every time it's a really fun process to learn about a culture from the ground up and to try to envision what it would have been like in that time period, the smells, the sights, the sounds, that kind of thing. So it's really research intensive, but I love it, so I could never complain about it.
Do Etta or Nicholas go through any big personal changes without spoiling too much?
Oh yeah, I always say in this book, Nicholas is constantly faced with choosing between life and death, and Etta's constantly choosing between love and family, which are very big choices that we hopefully will not have to ever make. I was like, that we all face. I was like, actually no, only in fiction hopefully we have to make those really hard, big, dramatic choices. But Etta, let's see, what can I say that's not too spoilery? Etta gets to know the other side of her family in this book, and it really changes how she perceives time travel and I think in Passenger she really feels like time travel is not a good thing. Nothing good comes from it. And then in this book she sort of has a little bit of a change of heart. She's like, well, and starts to rationalize how time travel could be good and like maybe we shouldn't destroy the astrolabe. Whereas Nicholas actually like spins in reverse, so by the end of the book the two of them, that's too spoiler, I won't say it, but they don't always agree on what they think the right path forward should be, to say the least, in this book, which was very different from Passenger, when they were almost always working in agreement with each other and had a really good sense of each other's minds. So,
But that's good. It gives like a sort of balance between like what's to come, what's not to come. It gives like a different meaning to like their characteristics as they mature and evolve in the series.
It's so true, and I mean the central question, like morality question of this series is like, should anyone be able to time travel even if you have that ability? Can anyone rightfully meddle in time, even if it's to serve a higher purpose or create peace? It's almost always at the expense of like another culture or another time period. So they constantly are juggling their choices and decisions and trying to figure out what the best way forward is for everyone, which is a very complicated decision-making process.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So what new characters do we encounter, or do any previously minor characters take on bigger roles?
Yes, I'm so excited. Sophia in Passenger was my least favorite character. Was really angry at her the entire book. I was like, I know why you're angry. I know you want more power, and you're so ambitious. Like, so I could respect her from that point of view. But I was like, you were just, look at your life, look at your choices, Sophia. But in this book, she kind of swung and became almost my favorite character to write, because she didn't lose that anger and what I like respected about her, and her passion and her ambition and drive. But she learns how to work better with others, which is important, but she also learns how to harness that same ambition and drive in a way that actually moves her forward, and she opens herself up to a little bit more compassion. So I really love her arc in the story, and she's traveling with Nicholas in this novel, and the two of them are the definition. They sort of go from enemies to frenemies, and then hopefully at the end you'll see they are maybe just friends and buds. And then, oh my gosh, there's a new character called Layman, who travels with Nicholas and Sophia, who is a hoot, if I do say so myself. I love her. She was really fun to write, especially her dynamic with Sophia. And then perhaps you will meet Nicholas's half-brother, Julian, who is also a hoot to write, if I do say so myself.
Yes. What do we learn about Edda's mother?
So Rose actually plays a pretty big role in this book, even though she doesn't necessarily she's not present on the page. Everyone is kind of talking about her, and Edda is really a product of Rose's legacy and Rose's ambition, Rose's beliefs, and Rose has tried to direct Edda's life. And ultimately, Edda has to make a decision. Ooh, how do I phrase this without it being a spoiler? Edda needs to do something at the end of the book, but she can't do it because of something that Rose has denied to her in the past. And it really is a story. I love developing her relationship with her mother a little bit more and exploring the distance between them, and Edda finding out the real purpose of why Rose had kind of sent her on this path. And you actually open the book with Rose in the prologue, and then the epilogue is also from Rose's point of view. So she bookends the book, if that makes sense.
That makes so much sense. That's good.
Yeah, so because it really is Rose's story as much as Edda's story too. So they share a little bit more page time in this one.
That's good. What themes of dramatic tension can we expect to encounter or continue?
Ooh, I really think the key for me to figure out this book was that I had to realize it was a book about families, and it was a book about other types of relationships besides romance. So Wayfarer has maybe a little less romance than Passenger did, because there's more focus on the relationship we have, the complex relationship that we have with our families and different family members, the legacy, like the beliefs we inherit, the hopes that we inherit from our parents. There's also, as I was saying before, frenemy relationships, there's allies, there's people who are working together even though they don't want to be working together, kind of thing. So it really is a study of how we interact with each other and what we inherit from our parents, for better or worse, that kind of a thing. And it really is a lot about like who if anyone gets to decide what the right timeline is, if it's the original timeline, which some of the characters want, which isn't our timeline, we're living currently in Ironwood's timeline in the story. If it's Ironwood's timeline, because he has done his best to try to make it as peaceful as possible, or if it's some other third option that no one has seen yet. So, a lot of big choices in this book.
Did writer's block interfere with you while writing?
I always get a little bit of writer's block, because what writer's block to me is when you're kind of chugging along and you're like, okay, like this is working, like I'm having fun, and then you hit a wall, and it's usually a symptom of something about the book being broken. So, I do this all the time where I'm like ignoring a problem I know is there until I hit that problem, and then I have to actually stop and take the time away from the story to figure out how to address the issue, whether it's like a character development problem where I've hit a snag in their arc and something doesn't make sense anymore, or if I feel bored with the story, sometimes that is another reason why writer's block kind of emerges. It's just like, if I'm bored, the reader's going to be bored, so let me take some time away to figure out how to, like, where to find the exciting little nugget that's inside of the scene again, so I can make it a fun read for everybody, including me.
Did you particularly enjoy writing any scenes or sections of this book?
Oh, there's so many. I'm like, I don't want to say because I'm so nervous. I don't want to spoil anyone. I'm not going to say the alternate New York scene that you get to see, because that one is maybe not the happiest scene. So that feels like, once people read the book, they'll understand why I don't want to say that was my favorite scene, because it's sort of like, yikes. I actually really loved writing from Rose's perspective in the prologue and epilogue, because I think it completes your view of the story and Etta's arc, and you kind of understand better why Rose made all of the really awful decisions that she made, and like hopefully you feel more sympathetic towards her by the end. But I really liked writing in her voice. She's a tough little cookie.
Were there any is it the alternate scene in New York, was that particularly difficult for you to write?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I keep saying yeah. I'm like, yes. I agree with all of these questions. The alternate history in this book was a doozy, and I originally had a different alternate history timeline figured out, and I realized pretty much after I'd finished a first draft that I had broken a couple of my own time travel rules, so I couldn't use that timeline that I had like very carefully plotted out. So I enlisted my friend Victoria Aveyard, and she helped me brainstorm. Yeah, she's my bud and my fellow history lover. Thank God she was willing to brainstorm at like 1 a.m. with me when I was in desperate need of like someone else who was up on the West Coast. So she helped me sort of reason out and uncomplicate a new timeline, because alternate history can get very complicated very quickly, because it's all little ripples and butterfly effects going out, and so you want it to make sense without it being totally overwhelming for the reader to figure out. So all of the alternate history scenes were like, for at least a little bit, but they were fun to write too, because it's like exploring, it's almost like writing fantasy in a way, but it's rooted in our reality.
Did you feel the book cover reflects the development of this?
Yes, and you know what? I'm going to pick one up because I feel like I can now explain the symbolism of the cover very well. So all of the time-traveling families in this book have tree last names, so they're all just different kinds of trees. And I think, as one of the characters says in Passenger, the branches represent the reach into the future, the roots, the reach into the past. And so the tree at the center is symbolizing the time-traveling families themselves, and they've been in this very carefully contained world that now is sort of cracking and shattering, and sort of about the breakdown of their very carefully constructed rule system, and now people are kind of escaping and going their own way, and it's a little bit chaotic, and you see maybe the New York skyline, and it's maybe disintegrating from what we knew. So it's like a very subtle hint at some of the breakdown of the rules of the very carefully managed time travel system.
what is coming after this book?
So after Wayfarer,
Yes.
after Wayfarer, I have actually a middle grade book. It is called The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. Comes out actually later this year, later I think this fall. It's basically a story of a boy, the youngest member of a very Kennedy-esque family who lives in a Massachusetts town that they founded in the 17th century. So they are like old school, very wealthy, powerful people. Everyone in that family has been like touched by an angel. They are super lucky, super good at everything they do, except for Prosper, who also has a terribly ironic name, Prosperity. And kind of unfortunate when you're 12 years old. But he ends up discovering, unfortunately, that the reason why they all have had this amazing luck and fortune over the centuries has been because they made a kind of unfortunate deal with an evil creature who now is back and wants to get his revenge when the family tried to break the deal and they kind of banished him for a while. So now Prosper has to figure out how to save his family and sort of deal with the demon that has been reborn inside of him. It's really funny, I promise. It sounds very... I have to figure out a better pitch for it that doesn't make it sound like...
No, it sounds very interesting, personally to me, because I would think about it that way.
It's darkly humorous, as I say. And it's set in, for the most part, in Salem, Massachusetts, right around Halloween, so it's fun. Yeah.
This is a middle school book?
Yeah. For 8... Well, it's similarly, I guess, for 8 to 12-year-olds. So that covers middle school.
Yeah. Since you've already written for Star Wars,
yes. Oh my gosh.
if you were called on to write the novelization of any syndicated work right now, is there anything you'd be eager to try your hand at?
I have a secret dream that one day Disney will ask me to write an Indiana Jones book.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was like, I can write history. I can write treasure hunts. Disney, you have my number, call me.
I heard it.
Are you still reliant on Mountain Dew?
Less so now. It's been a slow weaning process. I get off it and then I'm like, I need it for just this very tight revision. It's my go-go juice. I can't fully let go. But for the most part, yeah, I've mostly switched over to coffee. But like very sugary coffee, so it's not much better.
Question from a fan.
Yes, so we do have a question for a beloved fan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, who was actually your interviewer last week.
Oh, yeah.
Fan, because she's not working with us anymore.
Aw, bummer.
But she still very much wants to be here. And definitely wanted us to make sure we ask you this question.
Okay.
So in Wayfarer, there is a character previously believed to be deceased that is actually alive.
Yes.
Was this planned all along, or was it added after the completion of Passion?
It was planned from, in the first draft, he was, actually, I think he was, I'm trying to remember, in the very first draft of Passenger, that character was alive and was actually traveling with them towards the end. They met him on the ship at the beginning of Passenger, he was there. And between him and Sophia, it was sort of like I had to choose between one of them, because they were both serving the same role, and you kind of have to pare down to make sure the story is coherent and running smoothly. So he was alive at one point in Passenger. Then I was like, oh, but wouldn't it be even better for Nicholas's character if he had some kind of like darkness, not darkness, but some deep sadness and some fear about failing in the future, having let someone else down, or so he thinks. So Sophia actually took on a lot of the traits that this character, Julian, had. And so Julian, by the time I got to the end of writing Passenger, I was like, you know what, like maybe Julian isn't dead, because now I really want to write his character. So then I changed my mind and he wasn't dead anymore. I was like, thanks for that explanation, Rose, for why he isn't actually dead. So he does make an appearance in Wayfarer, and he is a blast, and Nicholas is polar opposite. And you'll understand why they were not the best of friends when they were traveling together.
Do you want to say anything about the book in general? Why people should read it? Or?
You should read it if you love time travel, adventure, romance. You want to go to far-off places without leaving your couch. This series is for you.
Thank you, Alexandra Bracken.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.